you doing,
good.
bro?
I'm doing very well. Thanks
Yeah?
for having me here today.
No doubt.
Excited to be a part of the process and have this conversation. You know, we've been able to have a ton of conversations off mic,
I know.
so I'm excited now to
have it recorded.
have
Yeah.
one recorded.
So
yeah,
it's funny because today is supposed to be our weekly accountability check-in, or
for sure.
I don't even know if we call it that anymore. But we've been doing that shit for like almost 2 years now, dude. I think
100%.
for anybody that's listening, every week, Colin and I, we just check in on each other and just talk about. Before it started, I guess just like talking about our goals and like kind of what we're trying, like what happened over the past week and like what we're looking forward to in the coming week, and then we'd hold each other accountable to that. And then it just evolved to like just checking in on each other and just sharing what we're like learning and stuff.
100%.
What are you learning right now, bro?
Oof, I'm learning
So much.
I'm learning a ton. Yeah, I'd say. Well, I'll give some of the big points from the last, I'd say, 3-ish months. So, was learning a lot about shadow work and looking into the shadows and
The shadows. What does that mean?
the shadows are essentially, so when we are growing up, we have different actions that we do in our day to day, and essentially our environment, our parents, our friends, society gives us feedback, and some of the actions we take, the feedback we get is positive, so we're like, okay, we're gonna keep doing that, and then we have other things that we do where we don't get such a positive response. And so essentially, those are things that we tend to either we actively are suppressing them, or because of just our inability to cope with the response, we end up repressing them. And so shadow work is essentially looking at things, when we may feel pain or when we may feel discomfort. We can look at what's there, or it can be a more just intentional, habitual, reflective practice. For me, it's been mostly through my meditation and through journaling, and then a lot of it stemming from just noticing when I experience pain or discomfort, and then allowing myself to sit with that and give that attention. And so just having a new relationship to pain has been a big thing for me, because I realized that through music I had gotten access to a lot of my emotions, and in the last 3 years I've been much more aware of my emotional landscape. But there were so many things prior to that I didn't have the toolkit yet to give them attention in a helpful way, and so I would end up just avoiding it. And
that's big. You hit on a bunch of stuff. It's kind of cute or cool that you use music as a way to access your emotions.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, and I think I've recently been doing that. And I've been saying to people, I'm like, yo, I feel music now, because I felt it before as a kid, but I was never like a music head, like people like you and like my boy Josh and like Taylor, etc. And did you consciously use music to access your emotions, or was it just like kind of an unconscious thing, or when did you discover that was what you were doing?
Yeah, I didn't connect that dot until like a month ago, a month and a half maybe.
Yeah,
it was just something that I would be drawn to, because I've done a little research into it, but essentially so let's say when you express yourself to someone, right, and then they listen well, they show that they understand, or are pushing themselves to understand, and they really show off the whole space for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? That can be a really relieving and healing experience.
Yeah.
And in similar fashion with music,
Mm-hmm.
when you notice your emotions being mirrored,
Mm.
even though it's not someone that you're speaking to,
Mm-hmm.
you're noticing that you're feeling that the musician, the artist is offering the similar emotions that you're feeling. So it's a similar way of you to really be able to, yeah, dive into that and almost heal and relieve, some of the suffering that might be associated. And it wasn't until recently where, because sometimes I'm getting better at allowing myself to cry, but that's still something that's hard for me. But I noticed that if I get the right song, if I feel it in my chest, that there's a lot there that I want to release, that discomfort in my chest.
Yeah.
Initially, I didn't really know what that meant. Now
Yeah.
I know when I have that discomfort, it's
Yeah.
because I want to release something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I've been able to, a lot more intentionally recently, been able to like pick a song that will allow me to like tap into that emotion.
Wow. What's one of those songs?
Whew, yeah. So there's a song by just a band called Salt,
Mhm.
SUALT.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Little Boy.
Mm-hmm.
And this stems, I don't want to go too much into it, but
Yeah.
it stems from a relationship with my brother.
Yeah.
And one of the lyrics is, one day you'll find out God is one of us. And that lyric was so profound to me because it's been a journey that I've been on, and I know that my brother's on and other people are on. What really stuck out to me about that particular lyric is that it's easy to not to forget or not even be aware that we're literally these miracles
Mm-hmm.
that are made up of the same source energy that creates everything around us, from the plants to the humans, etc., etc. And so that's sort of the understanding of God that I've grown to have,
Mm-hmm.
is that source energy,
Mm-hmm.
and the understanding that it's within us,
Yeah.
and so we're literally these miracles. And so it was based on where the healing that I've done, and my relationship with my brother, that really stuck out to me because it really allowed me to tap in,
Yeah.
and feel. And it was just such a hopeful sentiment. One day you'll find out that God is one of us.
I felt that too when you said it, and it's really interesting you're talking about this because literally today I cried, and recently I've been feeling like I needed to cry, but I was like I don't know why, and I don't know how to get it out, but like, I think I'm starting to use music intentionally in that way as well, because in fact, I've been learning a lot about like Tantra, as you know, and Tantra is really, it's kind of like meditation. It's just going into, like, we are on this physical plane of existence, and it's Tantra is saying that this is sacred, that the body is sacred, that there's something powerful here, like that this is the same. Like a lot of times in spirituality, people are trying to get out of their bodies and go into like other realms and stuff. But if you drop into your body, you have the same access to like higher dimensions, etc. And just like really access to that inner God, like presence inside of you. And so I'm doing this meditation. It's called the fire breath orgasm. And it's not like, you're touching yourself or anything like that. It's just using your breath and moving like the sexual energy around, like and you're just like systematically going from chakra to chakra and doing that. And I'm going from my root chakra to my my sacral center, to my solar plexus, and then I hit my heart. And I don't know what it was, but like I started like convulsing a little bit, like almost like gagging, like I didn't want to cry, but then I told myself, I was like, it's okay, like just go, just let it happen. And I just started bawling, and it was so strange. And I also had music playing on like throughout this whole experience. And it just, I think the music was like I was one with the music, and the music like was so perfect in how it synchronized with like my heart and like kind of like what I was experiencing in that moment. And I started crying, and it felt really fucking good. And I was like, yeah, like I'm a fucking human being. I have feelings. I'm like, I feel like I don't know what your experience has been, but you know, growing up, almost we were socialized out of feeling. You know, especially as men, as black men.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
What's been like what's been your I mean, is there, as you think about like your growth and evolution, and even like from childhood to like to where you're at right now, are there any stories or things that come up that kind of touch on this subject of like, you know, not being able to feel?
Yeah, and that was so much of. I love that you shared that, because that was so much of what. Well, just beautiful story.
Thank you.
I'm happy that you were able to access that
Yeah.
and let go and allow yourself to do what's natural.
Yeah.
You know, I love a related thought, and then I'll answer your question. Jay Electronica,
Yeah.
he has this lyric
Mm-hmm.
that says, "My eyes cry water out my tear ducts to heal me." And I always I love that bar, because that's literally what crying is. You know, it's how we heal, it's how we relieve stress, and or it's how we really tap into a deep emotion. It doesn't even have to be sad. You know, you can have tears of gratitude.
Yeah.
And so, to your point, especially as black men, that was a connection with the salt lyric. You know, when I was growing up, a lot of the images that I saw of black men were, you know, rappers, and like they would be I remember Ja Rule videos where he'd be in jail and the girl would be coming to visit him, and just the whole understanding that I had of masculinity, and that I learned from my parents and my environment was, you know, men don't feel emotions unless it's anger or excitement. And so crying was definitely not. I remember multiple times hearing like, boys don't cry. And so that was definitely something that I internalized. I don't think I cried. I don't remember crying, maybe once, between the ages of like 10 to like 24.
That's ridiculous.
I can,
and I'm right there with you.
Yeah. You know, and maybe I did more than that, but I
Yeah.
remember like once, maybe twice. You know, in the last 6 months, I've cried like almost. You know, like, wow, how many times? I mean, I've cried close to 10 times in the last like 6 months.
That's big.
You know what I mean? And they weren't all sad tears.
Yeah.
They were like tears of gratitude, definitely some sad tears, healing tears. Yeah, I would say like 10 times in the last 6 months. You know, and so that's a complete 180 from where I was. And yeah, initially it's still hard for me at times, and there's still, I've internalized so much. And as I've started to redefine masculinity for myself, and also learn more about the different masculine and feminine energies that live within me, live within all of us, and the power and the courage that I now associate with vulnerability and with connecting to truth and with tapping into emotions, that's new relationship has made it so that I'm able to see crying as healing, see it as my body doing something exceptional. And prior to that, I saw it more as a weakness. And so that's been a complete relationship change to my emotions and to crying.
How has that translated in your life? Like, what's the impact of you healing, like, you know, allowing yourself to like feel these emotions, to cry, to Yeah. What does that look like? What does your life look like now because as a result of that?
Yeah, well, one, I feel so much more empowered.
Yeah.
I realize that when I have a painful experience, it's, I'll say this because tears of gratitude are more just like, oh my God,
Yeah.
like this is great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the more painful experiences are ones that that I tend to avoid. And when I'm able to work through it, there's that initial discomfort. But what I've noticed is that on the other end of that, there's so much expansion because I've been able to let go of things, and then I'm able to fill myself with new things that are a lot more aligned, and I just feel a lot more empowered, a lot more comfortable sharing these emotions because I have less shame around them. And then with other peers, I've been able to, as I become more aware of my emotions, I'm able to more intuitively pick up on other people's emotions, which is something that humans in general are capable of doing. That's part of how we communicate. But most of us aren't necessarily as tapped into that because first it takes being aware of your own emotions to then be able to really feel someone else's emotions. And so my growth emotionally has allowed me to be able to understand other humans a lot better, to listen a lot better, and to have a new relationship between more pleasant and more and less pleasant emotions, and recognizing that yes, like happiness is really important to me. Like I practice things that give me joy, that allow me to be in a more
Equanimous.
Equanimous,
Yeah.
equanimous state. And with that, recognizing that there's also so like that's more of the light stuff, right? That's more of the stuff that society encourages, right? Especially as a man, that's but on the other side, recognizing that I'm this full human, I'm this full being, and there's so much value and beauty in listening to the darker emotions, and that understanding has just allowed me to give them both attention, which has propelled my healing. That's the biggest way. It's propelled my healing, which has allowed me to show up a lot more empowered in the world.
Do you know me, like I'm like more you constantly push me to like dive into like those emotions and to like even like I guess the shadow work, and whereas I'm more like, hey, like, you know what, like the past is the past, things that like, these feelings, they'll go away, this too shall pass, let's just like stay like look forward and like create towards that direction. Where was I gonna go with this? Because so you challenged me to do that. Do you ever fear that like going, or I'm actually curious for you, when you're going into those emotions, into the shadow work, what's the impetus, what's the drive, what's the motivation behind it? Like, why do you want to do that?
Good question. So that's to your point, I've had similar sentiments as well, or just haven't been fully aware of the value of it. And what I realized is that Jay-Z has this beautiful line where he says, you can't heal what you don't reveal. And so everything from our past, whether we know it or not, it impacts our subconscious, whether it's in a beneficial or an unproductive way, right? And so there are things that we might not be fully aware of because we've pushed them down enough, but they still impact us. They still impact the way we show up. They still impact the way we think. They still impact the way we interact with other people. And so, if you push it to the side, that doesn't mean that it what I've noticed is it doesn't mean that it's not there.
Mm-hmm.
It just means that it's affecting you, and you might not be fully aware of how it's affecting you.
Mm-hmm.
Or it keeps coming up, and you're like, why don't you just leave me alone? You know? And what I've noticed is that when I give it adequate attention with compassion, right? So it's not a judgmental. It's more of like, okay, you know, if it's a friend, you know, a friend that's feeling some sort of way, it's like, okay, what's there? You know, what am I feeling? Why might I be feeling this? What's underneath it?
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed going through that process of getting to the layers, it almost instinctively, the response is compassion for myself. Because yeah, I'm able to really get down there and see like, wow, like you've been through this. And through that process, you know, we have wisdom inside. And through that process, I'm been able to see, okay, all right, how do I want my relationship with this to change? Or, you know, you get insights as to you know, how to move forward. And I think the biggest thing is having someone that you trust, that you can communicate with about these things, because then you're able to release it, and you're able to set new intentions, right? So for me, I noticed like I had body things that would make intimacy for me challenging. So being able to go and tap it and just be more aware of these past traumas, right? That allowed me then to say, okay, when you know, because one thing about the body is like even when we know we're safe, our body pushes, if we're in a similar situation, our body pushes us to have a stress response. And so you can be completely out of it, but you're still having the stress response because you haven't given that, you know, that trauma attention, you know? And so giving that attention allows me to have a new relationship with the stress. And then it allows me to lean into the fear. And eventually I'm able to, you know, there's less energy attached to it. I'm able to let it go. And I'm able to create space for new things and just to be able to change my relationship to stuff. So now I'm fully aware of, you know, or at least a lot more aware of when that, you know, old stuff comes up. And through the process of giving attention, I'm then able to be in similar situations and not feel the same level of stress or the same energy attached to the triggers. And yeah, so it's empowered me, and I would say for anyone wondering like, is it worthwhile? Should I just look forward? I would say, even if you're looking forward, if you haven't given attention to things that cause you subconsciously to have discomfort, or previous, you know, traumas, they're still gonna come up. They're gonna impact you. You know.
And I guess the way I kind of look at it now is I think maybe in the past I would have like tried to always try to fix myself or figure out what like dig deep, and sometimes it actually disempowers me to like go like to try to, because I could go far back, and then like you could even like, if you really want to take it that far, like, you know, look at the like what were my parents' lives, and then like and then like there, and like, and where did they inherit that, and like and it's just like, it's like, where do you, it can be a little overwhelming. You know?
No, it's a lot. It's a lot.
And so I think how I'm like starting to approach it is just through being present. And if in my presence, in my, you know, reaching for, or just being joyful and being empowered and being loving, if there's something that takes me away from that, then it's like really it's a lot more like, apparent
what's there.
And then you can like kind of like dive into that a little bit, and I kind of just like, how I do is I just kind of feel the sensations and express whatever needs to be expressed, and I think something what you said, having people that you can share that with is huge. Like you've been like really like, you know, like one of the main people that's helped me heal a lot over these like past few months, and I didn't realize how important it was for me, and I think, you know, a lot of men probably need this shit, whether you're getting it from therapy or like whatever, you know, just having a space where you can like share whatever's going on, you know.
And to your point, right?
Yeah.
I like what you shared, right? Because we don't want it to be. It's not supposed to be all at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not. You don't want to necessarily force it. You want to flow with this stuff, and you know, you want to listen to what's there, right? Your body has a ton of wisdom, so when you listen to it, you're able to have some sort of new understanding, and that manifests in whatever way. Then eventually life gives you new challenges and you have new understandings. And to the point of looking back, I realized like a lot of the shadow work is actually looking back at the relationship between parent and child. Because without that, then we end up carrying on things, you know, different trauma cycles that our parents inherited. We end up carrying it on to our own kids and our own, you know, peers, et cetera, our own partners. Versus when we're able to look at the different dynamics, we say, oh, I know, you know, for me, a big part of that was masculinity, noticing like, ooh, like this is what, you know, my dad internalized and this is what was projected onto me. But now that I'm aware of that, I can be like, oh, do I actually want to follow through on all of that? Or are there things that I want to break myself, right? And through that breaking, then I'm able to show up more fully as me, and then I don't pass that on to others.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's facts. I think it's like at some point someone needs to break the cycle.
Yeah.
You know, like in my family right now, without going into too many details, it's just like there's a lot of stress, you know, like and in certain aspects of you know, just around like mental health and that's it's like such a sore point that breeds all types of emotions, and people are just reacting, and I could see it in like the hurt, the pain, the anger, and I'm just like, how do we like, and it's, I don't know, like I don't have the answers, right? But it just feels like we're just like, a lot of times what happens, and not just in my family, but we see this in society in general, like people are reacting to things that are happening, and we don't really have a constructive way to like deal with the emotions and to almost start to be aware of like what's actually going on, and to know that we can be empowered to break the cycle. Because if we don't, then we react, and then maybe we go out into the world and we like how we're being affects someone else, and they react 100%. To that energy, and then they go out into their like to the work that they're doing and to their families, and they're reacting, and then the family, and it's just like creating this cycle of reaction, and just somebody's got to take a stand to break that, you know.
100%. And you can't break it unless you're aware that it even exists.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. And as I've learned more about habits, it's like most of what we do is, you know, our most of what we do and think, it's habitual. You know, and once it's ingrained in the brain, you're doing it whether you want to or not. You know, and without that awareness, you can't even recognize, oh, I'm doing this thing that I really disliked when my parents did, but now I'm out here doing it myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and a lot of times it kind of it morphs and it takes on like a different form, or it expresses itself slightly differently, but it like at its core is like some of the stuff, you know, from like your past and, you know, your relationships and such.
100%.
Yeah. 1 second. Oh, sorry, my fault. Just switching camera positions and whatnot. Social media and whatnot. Actually, that's a great transition to something else I wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah,
social media.
For sure.
Yo, you're always on that, and you've been pretty masterful at building brands and communities and bringing people together. And I imagine like, or actually, let me not impose or put thoughts into your mind. What's been the secret to that? What's been your secret sauce? What's your methodology behind when you're starting a company, when you're starting a brand, building a community? How do you think about doing that?
Yeah, that's it. Well, I would say I'm a lot less naive now, so I've certainly learned a lot. And so I'm carrying a lot of what I've learned into, you know, but in in the past, so much of it has been starting with a, a problem that I care about.
Yeah.
Starting with why. Now I'm able to have the language to understand, oh, I was starting with a reason why. There was something that was burning that I couldn't stop thinking about, a problem, when it came to Innerglow, that community. It was me, looking around, seeing, the election was happening, 2016, friends going through transitions, a lot of people close to me unhappy, unfulfilled, really looking for their fulfillment in rings or degrees or et cetera, myself included, and realizing like, whoa, like that is, as I learn more through meditation, like realize like, holy shit, like I said earlier, like we're literally these miracles, you know what I mean? And if you're not aware of that you are this profound being with so much value, it's easy to be living in a way that really limits that. And so that was the initial problem that I saw. And so what I've realized now, I'm a lot more experienced and knowledgeable. I realize now it's like, okay, if this is a problem that I have, I'm likely not the only person that has that problem. And I am like the first customer, like the target market. And so really listening, okay, what would sound like a solution for me or people like me? How can I communicate this in a way that would make me feel like, that I would resonate with, that would move me? And so through that understanding, I've been able to then communicate a lot more effectively with others. I think another big thing when it comes to building brands and communities is treating humans like humans and not treating them like data. We aren't just trying to get to 1,000 newsletter signups or followers or people showing up. Those are real humans. And so something that I realized has come more naturally to me is that I'm a super connector. So by my nature, I get really energized by connecting with a lot of people, learning from other people, building relationships. And so now I'm able to be a lot more strategic with it. And what guides me is like, okay, is this a person that I admire? Okay, if I admire them, I want to learn from them. I want to get close to them. And so just being forward with that and telling people, hey, I really like this thing that you did. I would love to, have, however I communicate it, but essentially say like, I really like what you're doing and I want to get closer to you. You know what I mean? I want to get to know you more as a person. And just being really genuine about that. And also coming from a place of like, is there ways that I can support that person in what they're doing? And that just allows me to build relationships. And that's essentially what communities come down to. It's like a why that people identify with, relationships, and them feeling like they are growing and getting better from being a part of whatever you're doing. And so the getting better part is essentially solving, a big part of the problem that existed. And then there's ways to just be, what I've learned with communities is like people either, and they often both happen, but aside from like connecting with others and making friends, they want to feel like they're growing professionally or growing personally, so just being really intentional about communicating how they're actually growing by being a part of the community, and then making it tangible so that they're able to see, as they invest time, they're getting the results of growing in ways that they want to grow. So that's been big. I feel there's certainly a lot of research and a lot of things that I've learned and mentors and all of that sort of stuff, but I do recognize that I have practice and I'm good at understanding humans and building relationships. And so through being really genuine and following through on things that tend to be more intuitive for me, that's been really helpful. Because what I notice about brand is that at the end of the day, brand is a feeling. Brand is how you make people feel. And so when it comes to creating a brand or creating community, I'm just very intentional about, okay, I'm gonna create this brand as if it's a real person with a personality, and think about, okay, if this brand is a person, what is the personality I want to have, and how do I want it to make people feel when they interact with the brand? And through that process, it helps me, create this other person that people can relate to, that people feel like they want to almost be friends with. You know?
Yeah. What are some brands or communities that you really admire?
Yeah. That's a good question. Spotify comes up as a brand that I admire. They do such a good job of making people feel special, making me feel special. They send their year-end playlist where it's like, these are your top 100 songs that you listen to in the order you listen to. They just did like, these are your top artists of the last decade. Then they just continuously come up with ways to really personalize this experience, right? And in my mind, I know, okay, this is an algorithm. Someone is putting in, whatever programming they need to get it, but just the thought process behind it is still the same. They're making me feel special. And so that's really cool. Another brand that or another community, that's a good one. Another community that I admire, who comes to mind? Yeah, there's a ooh. Well, I think Three Jewels is really cool.
Yeah. I
think they do a good job of like making who they are and what they stand for very clear, and then they do a good job of making, like, I haven't even been to the studio, but I feel like, wow, like they really care about me, and so that's cool. Let's see. Yeah.
Any products that well, I guess Spotify is like kind of like a digital product.
Yeah.
Any physical products that you really that give you like a certain feeling that you enjoy or admire?
Yeah. Well, I'll say one, and then that some people might not know, and then I'll say two others. Well, okay. One that comes to mind. So my buddy Emmett Shine behind Pattern Brands. They're a direct to consumer company. They sell cookware and home organization stuff. Yeah. But their whole approach. Ooh, that's another one. Another one that came to mind. Their whole approach is community. Through their branding, through the events they have, through the talk series that they have. Yeah. And through literally reaching out to people and communicating and texting, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and inviting people and just making people feel like people and not just like they're part of the data. And so they do a great job with that. And so much of that is like, okay, how do you build community around the product? I think Matcha is another brand that does an amazing job, really thinking through. They're selling drinks, but it was very clear from the jump that their focus was community, through highlighting their investors and other people who are into the brand. I remember they used to do these matcha stories where they would pick different creatives and they would highlight their work and their stories. And so much of it was about, okay, this is a person that is aligned with the energy of the brand and the feeling of the brand. And so that always stood out to me, because I was like, oh, when you think about all the brands that are really stand out, right? If you think about WeWork, what separates them from the other co-working spaces is like they're pushing community first. Obviously they have some other stuff that hasn't gone as well recently, but that's what differentiates them. When you look at Lululemon versus some of the other yoga brands, that's what stands out to them. They literally open up their studio so people can teach classes and use their spaces for free. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they understand, okay, this is community, this is people. When you think about, there was another good one. When you think about even Sweet Green, right? Sweet Green, I don't know if they're doing it anymore, but they were throwing festivals every summer, They're a salad company, but they understand, no, this is about people. That's how we really separate ourselves from others. We want people to feel a certain way about our brand. We want to be able to bring people together. And then when I think about some of the bigger brands like Apple, certainly they've
Mm-hmm.
figured it out 100%. Everything from they're very clear on their why, and that's what they lead with, and that's what allows people to identify with. But then when you think about the actual product, right? Like I had an Android for a minute, and the reason why I got a iPhone was literally because of the community features, right? Two of the biggest ones being FaceTime and iMessage, right? The fact that you can FaceTime someone that has the same phone as you anywhere in the world, that's a big deal. That you can send, what would be a text message to anyone in the world that has the same phone. That's a big deal. That you can leave these little hearts and comments and all that stuff on these messages, right? That is different than the other, than when I had my Android and I couldn't do that. I felt like, oh man, I really want to be able to connect with people in this way. And so they understand how to get you into that ecosystem and make you feel that you align with their mission, and then also that you can connect deeper with other people because you are in this ecosystem.
That's amazing. And I think it makes me think of like the TED Talk and book by Simon Sinek where he says start with why,
100%.
and it's just like leading with the heart of it all, and then from there you can figure out the how and then the what.
100%.
And I think that can be applied to anything. Like it could be applied to people who create bricks, like literally just thinking about like how do you create an experience and actually care about people, and that's at the heart of it all. You're building a new community,
for sure,
business.
for sure.
Give us the rundown on that.
Yeah, for sure. So it's full circle from the first community that we built, Innerglow, and the idea really is to help people tap into their full self. It's called the Peoples, and really through building Innerglow, realized that we have so much value already as humans, and when we're able to access that, when we're able to connect more with ourselves, then we're able to share our gifts in a much more empowered way. And so that's the idea behind it. It's going to be a platform built centered around culture and wellness. And a big idea that we have as well is that like a lot of these existing networks, they don't make you feel good when a lot of the current social networks. And so what people want now are more niche networks that actually help them feel good and empowered and help them connect with like-minded people, especially once you are. So that's really what it is, and so there will be ways for people to connect and have classes and things of that sort. But the big differentiator that we're excited about for the platform is a marketplace that really empowers the creators. And so we're thinking about more of a circular economy. And so what that would look like is, let's say as you tap more into your full self, you are more empowered to share your gift of music or cooking or yoga, or maybe it's physical products that you make, a card game or candles, right? The idea is that within this marketplace, you will be able to much more easily sell to your existing community, but also have all these other people that align with, the energy you're giving off. And, that opens you up to so many other ways to monetize your, the source activities that you share and that you love already. And so that's really the idea of it, and then in that way you can learn from others, you can monetize your gifts and connect with like-minded people. And so we're focusing on building the community right now, piggybacking off of a lot of the community that we already had, and focusing on content being the driver. So social, newsletter, podcast, and the idea is to build up a wait list and through that process build up the momentum, the desire, and just so right now we're focusing on content and relationships. And then the platform comes
That's
next.
interesting. I mean, like, my mind goes to like monetization and how are you going to build a sustainable business out of this, and it feels like you're gonna have to build because I imagine with a marketplace you take like a percentage of like the the transactions that are being like created on the platform, and so it's like you have to reach like a certain like level of scale.
Well, that's one.
Yeah.
But that's actually the secondary way that we're planning to make money.
Interesting.
The initial way is by charging a monthly fee to be a member. So what we noticed is that like when you have these really broad, large networks, people are less willing to pay for them. But what's happening now is just unbundling of these really large networks. So the Reddits and the LinkedIns and the Facebooks and the Instagrams, people want more niche communities, whether it's like a community for women entrepreneurs or a community for moms over 50, or Ethel's Club comes to mind, like a wellness club a social wellness club for people of color, right? So when you have these more niche communities, right, because it's either the advertisers are the customers and you get access to this community for free, and they figure out ways to get your attention so they can sell ads, or you're the customer and people are starting to understand that. And with these small niche communities, when there's enough value given, people are willing to pay for it. So when you think about, I have access to online classes, I have access to these really cool online events with people that I care about, I have access to this marketplace where I can learn so many new skills, and then I'm able to connect with all these really amazing people, and then we're eventually thinking about having some offline experiences as well. But I'm confident that we'll be able to offer enough value that it'll be like, I can pay this smaller amount and get access to all this, and have this community, or it could be like more one-off where I just pay for you're gonna end up paying for things if you really want that stuff regardless. You know what I mean? So it's cool to have it packaged in a really cool way with people that you resonate with, in a community that you're into. And so that's really the mindset.
I love it. And so is the target audience, like the ideal person for this community, a creator, or because I imagine anybody is good for anybody, but like who do you have in mind when you think of like?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so the ideal person is someone who is wants to grow and is interested in wellness and their well-being, and in ways that they can develop that. And then we also have a cultural lens, right? So it's someone who cares about people and creating, and music and art are some of the ways that'll play into it, and that'll be something that we'll be really pushing. But in general, it's someone who wants to tap into their full self. They tap into the creator inside of them, tap into their personal development and their spiritual journey. And I know that there's a way that we can communicate these ideas in a way that people will be receptive to. And I also know that that's a part of our hierarchy of needs, right? We want deep connections, and we want to get better as people. And so that's really where we're, people who are ready to lean into that are really the people that we're focusing on.
Dude, yeah, that's New Norm Club, okay? All of you guys that are listening right now, this is for you. I'm definitely gonna be a part of the community.
100%. Something else that comes to mind too is we're really being intentional about making it a space that's diverse, that feels inclusive. And that's important to me because a lot of my early experience in the wellness space, it didn't feel very inclusive, and so that's something that super important to me. And so everything that we're thinking about now is like, okay, how can we make this a space where, you know, women, men, people of color, white people feel like, okay, if I resonate with this idea of tapping into my full self from this like cool cultural angle, then it's for me, you know what I mean? That they can be a part of it.
I think you've always been really good about that. Even like with Innerglow, which was like the meditation community that you created years ago. It was like one of the most diverse, like probably the most diverse meditation community in all of like New York City.
Facts. Yeah, we'll take that.
You know, it was actually I'd been to like a bunch of different events in different places, and there was no other space where I was around other young professionals, you know, like late 20s, early 30s, with from different backgrounds across different like nationalities, ethnicities, religion, like races. It was amazing, and I think that was one of the things that a lot of people would say about like Innerglow, and I think it kind of takes the founder has to be intentional, like it has like at the inception, you know, from the like when you're building it up, has to be like a priority for you.
For sure.
So it's great to hear that is a priority for you
sure.
and the people,
and not just a priority to make more dollars.
Yeah,
because like if you want to look at it from a dollar standpoint, if I make this something more people feel comfortable with, of course more people will buy it. But like for the difference, I feel like for me is this is something that is connected to the why, because I feel like disproportionately, you know, people of color are not, especially in this country, are not in spaces where they can really tap into their full selves, you know. So it feels important to me to make sure that, okay, that's a pillar of the space that we do create.
Do you feel like, I mean, you've done a lot of like healing work and really coming into yourself and your power and in the fullness of your humanity. What's your relationship with race and your relation, like yourself as a black man?
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like now?
Woo. Yeah. Woo. I like this. Yeah, it's still evolving. I'd say though, post George Floyd, there's been a huge shift and expansion for me. You know, I've you know had I've considered a fortune of being in predominantly black spaces, predominantly white spaces, and so I've been able to sort of have this understanding that like there are these two Americas where like expectations are different from teachers, access to opportunities are different, and so that awareness, you know, really at points had me feel like, okay, the game is rigged, and it pushed me to learn a lot more about, you know, Black history and you know, things that we aren't taught in school, and you know how we got here from a financial standpoint, how we, you know, got here from a societal and cultural standpoint. And so that was a lot of the learning that I had been doing over the last 7 years, which was really empowering and healing for me and allowed me to look at a lot of the lies and stories that I had been told about what it meant to be a black man and be able to make those decisions for myself and let go of what I hadn't understood. But at the same time, I was still a lot more compromising in the sense of like making myself small, compromising my humanity for the safety of, not even the safety, for the comfort of others. And yeah, over the last, I don't know, where are we at now? We're in November. I'd say 5 months. That's been a journey for me of realizing like, wait a minute, I'm just as human, just as deserving, just as valuable as anyone else. I shouldn't be shrinking myself so, you know, another can be more comfortable in whatever violence or harmful ideas, you know, they're perpetuating. Like, that is not my job. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's allowed me to take up more space. It's allowed me to be more loving to myself. It's allowed me to be a voice for others. and it's allowed me to like have new expectations in relationships and just hold people accountable. Like I in high school and even in college, I was a lot more willing to be like, okay, what you said made me uncomfortable, or like here's why, you know, this idea that you're sharing, you know, is not okay, you know. When kids would be like, yo, you're not really black, you know, or like in high school, or just be like, yo, you got on a ghetto hat because I had a fitted on, you know what I mean? And just like saying these like comments that were dehumanizing, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I would just roll with it, you know. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, A, you know, I'm going to have to tell you why that makes me uncomfortable and why, you know, that can't be our dynamic in the relationship. And B, when I just think about friendships, it's like, you know, I had to make a choice over the recent months where I was like, okay, a basic expectation in any friendship is that you care about my life, right? And when you think about the, you know, the Black liberation movement, right, that's really what it is about. It's about making sure that Black lives are treated with dignity, are protected. And, you know, that hasn't historically been the case in this country. You know what I mean? So this is a new idea for a lot of people. The veil is being, you know, revealed, you know. And so I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, if you're my friend, then it's important for me, it's necessary for me that you're willing to educate yourself, that you're willing to, you know, look at your own internalized biases, and that you are willing to, you know, change your behavior if you realize your behavior is harmful. And if you are unwilling to do that, then, you know, we can still have love, but you can't be someone that I'm breaking bread with and going to parties with, you know what I mean? And you can't be in my circle. And that's a line that I hadn't drawn until recently. And that's been really empowering for me to be able to draw that line.
That's amazing, man. Yeah, I can definitely say I've been learning a lot of that from you as well, where, I mean, most of my life I felt like I shrunk, especially like, you know, going into the white spaces, you know, West Town, like boarding school, or going to Harvard. And I remember like coming back from Lamont Cafe in the middle of the night, like that's where we like do work and stuff. And then we walk into my dorm, and then like there would be like a white girl there, and then I would just start whistling so that she would know that like, hey, I'm friendly, you know, like, and then she would cross the street, and I was just like, God damn it, you know, like, and like that would happen time and time again. And I remember when we went to the Catskills recently, we go into like, it's like middle of the night, it's like really late. We go to like, we think this is the place, and it was like, oh yeah, it's the place. And so we go to our Airbnb, and we go around, and we start to get onto the porch to like try to find the entrance, and then I saw some people in through the windows, and I was like, oh shit, like let me be careful before I like scare some white people or something like that. And then you're like, I remember you saying like no, like you're like, no, like we're taking up space, you know. And that was very that was like the first time in my life where I started to really see like, oh yeah, like I do shrink. I don't let myself be fully me. I don't let myself embrace that I'm a strong, powerful Black man, and because I'm always trying to make everybody happy, please everybody, make them comfortable, and people don't have to do that. I don't think they're thinking like that.
No, 100%. Yeah. And I've got you by that, because one other thing I shared is like, who gets to be scared in America, and two, like, we've been given the narrative that we are threats, because of the color of our skin, which is so harmful, right? And it's not on us to prove our humanity to other people. You know, it's on them to grow as people and be like, wow, I should treat other people fairly and not look down on them. And so, you know, that was a big area of growth for me, just realizing like that's not my job. It's not my job to shrink myself so that other people feel more comfortable with perpetuating the idea that I'm less than. Like, that is a wild mind fuck, you know what I mean? Like, that's not my job, you know?
It's real. Makes me think of my favorite quote, one of my favorite quotes by Marianne Williamson, who says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Who am I? Oh, fuck. How does it go? Like, who am I to... I need to find this quote. Let me see if I can find it. Because it was really fucking powerful. Let me see. Our deepest fear. Or butcher it. Okay. Yeah, okay. So our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We're all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we're liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others.
100%. 100%. That's powerful.
Yeah.
That's powerful. That's actually, I'm glad you brought that. That's a sentiment that I've been like understanding at a deeper level more recently. Yeah, no, it's important.
Oh man, okay. So before I ask you this last question,
Yeah.
I want to say thank you, Kyle. Thank you for being a leader. Thank you for being a model of what it means to be a man in 2020 and what it can look like going forward. Because in your space, in your expansion, in your owning your humanity, it creates space for other people to do the same.
Wow.
So thank you, brother.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. I received that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
The last question for you is, what should a new norm be? And you can go wherever you want with that.
Woo. Yeah. A new norm. Wow. I mean, we
You can go anywhere you want with that question.
Yeah. Wow.
Do you need a moment?
No, I mean, there's so many new norms. But one that comes to mind though is taking care of our minds caring about our minds as much as we care about our bodies, and then eventually caring about our souls as much as we care about our bodies. But yeah, that's what comes to mind.
Dope. Kyle Somersall, thank you.
Thank you for having me, Clyde Gabriel.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here.
No doubt, brother.
This was a really fulfilling conversation. So
Hey there. I hope you really enjoyed today's podcast episode. As you know, at New Norm Club, we really believe in the Ubuntu philosophy, which basically means I am because we are. You know, rising tide raises all ships. And so this podcast is not just a podcast, it's also a community. So feel free to go to the Facebook group and join and connect with other like-minded people. Share what your biggest takeaways were from this episode. Also, do that in your personal social media so that we can get more people into this family, so that we can start to redefine the world together and support each other and empower each other and inspire each other to be our best selves. And don't forget to tag at New Norm Club and at Glyvolner, that's me, GLYVOLNER, on any of your social platforms. And also follow on your preferred podcasting platform, Spotify, etc., YouTube, or you know the drill. So have an amazing rest of your day and see you on the next episode.